When an economy crashes, the first minutes feel like slow-motion chaos. Prices shift overnight, banks limit withdrawals, markets bleed, and ordinary people find themselves thrown into a new reality they didn't choose. The rules of yesterday stop working. The safety nets that once felt certain suddenly look fragile. Panic becomes contagious, and small mistakes can snowball into life-altering losses. In moments like this, the question isn't who caused the collapse, but how to survive it. The first thing people must do is understand what an economic crash actually means. It's not just a stock market correction or a dip in GDP. A crash is a breakdown in confidence, a point where individuals, companies, and even governments stop trusting the system that normally keeps money flowing. When that trust evaporates, spending freezes, credit locks up, and the entire machine of daily life stalls. Jobs disappear, not because people suddenly forgot how to work, but because businesses lose the ability to operate. Banks tighten lending not because they want to punish people, but because they're desperately protecting whatever liquidity remains. During a crash, information becomes more valuable than money. People who understand what is happening, who stay calm and aware, tend to make decisions that protect them rather than trap them. Those who ignore the signals or rely on outdated assumptions often face the harshest consequences. So the first survival skill is awareness, knowing the difference between temporary noise and long-term structural damage. When major institutions fail, when governments suddenly issue emergency statements, when markets shut down trading to prevent a total freefall, these are not ordinary business cycle events. These are alarm bells. Right after awareness comes liquidity. In simple terms, cash is flexibility. When credit markets freeze, when banks impose limits, when valuations fall faster than people can react, the individuals and families who keep liquid reserves become the ones with options. Cash buys time, and in a collapse, time becomes its own form of currency. People who can cover expenses without relying on loans or unstable income streams can reposition themselves rather than being forced into desperate decisions. Liquidity also creates bargaining power. In every crisis, people with available funds acquire assets at deep discounts while others are forced to sell under pressure. The next step is cutting unnecessary expenses with precision. This isn't about fear, it's about control. In a crash, the economic environment punishes overspending. Reducing costs early, not after the damage hits, creates breathing room. It allows households and businesses to stretch their savings, avoid debt traps, and maintain stability while others scramble. Smart cutting means removing wants, not needs, and reevaluating lifestyle choices through the lens of survival and opportunity. It doesn't mean shrinking ambition, it means strengthening the foundation. Once stability at home is secured, people must shift focus to income resilience. When traditional jobs disappear, flexible income becomes a lifeline. The gig economy, remote work, freelance skills, or small-scale services become more valuable than ever. Crashes reshape demand. People still need repairs, food, digital services, transportation, and essential products. Those who pivot quickly often replace lost income faster than those who wait for their old jobs to return. History shows that recessions create new industries and elevate people who adapt faster than the market. Another crucial action is reducing exposure to debt. Debt becomes more dangerous in a collapse because interest rates can spike, income can fall, and lenders can change terms unexpectedly. Paying down high-risk debt or negotiating new terms early can prevent catastrophic pressure later. When the environment becomes unstable, every dollar owed becomes a vulnerability. Eliminating that vulnerability, even partially, means gaining speed in a crisis where slow reactions can be fatal. People also have to protect their emergency assets. Not everything belongs in the stock market during a crash. Diversifying into safer vehicles, even temporarily, can prevent panic selling and devastating losses. Gold, treasury bills, essential commodities, and cash equivalents often act as anchors. The strategy isn't to predict the market perfectly, but to protect the downside so recovery remains possible. When others lose everything, those with protected capital have the ability to rebuild. One of the most overlooked steps during an economic crash is strengthening community ties. Crises isolate people, but survival thrives on networks. Neighbors, friends, family members, local businesses. These connections become support systems for sharing resources, skills, and information. Communities that stay connected overcome scarcity better than individuals acting alone. Emotional resilience is also boosted through supportive social networks, reducing panic and encouraging smarter decisions. It's equally important to track government moves closely. During a crash, governments intervene with stimulus, regulations, emergency measures, rate changes, and policy shifts that directly affect people's finances. Those who monitor these moves can position themselves early, taking advantage of relief programs, tax adjustments, or stabilizing measures. Those who ignore them often miss life-changing opportunities or fall into preventable traps. Another key strategy is avoiding impulsive decisions. Crashes distort perception. Fear magnifies small issues into existential threats. Hope exaggerates small rebounds into false recoveries. Acting purely out of emotion leads to costly mistakes. When the environment is unstable, measured decisions become a superpower. Pausing, evaluating, and planning before acting can protect savings, prevent bad investments, and avoid irreversible financial damage. Food security becomes a quiet but vital priority during deep crashes. Supply chains weaken, prices rise, and availability becomes inconsistent. People who build small food reserves, not stockpiling excessively, but creating sensible emergency buffers, gain stability. It reduces pressure when prices spike and ensures families aren't scrambling when shelves run empty or transportation disruptions intensify. Skill building becomes another survival pillar. When industries contract, the people with the broadest or most adaptable skill sets find new opportunities fastest. Learning digital tools, financial literacy, trade skills, or crisis-relevant abilities like repairs, logistics, or home production increases employability. Crashes reshape the job market, but they also reward adaptability with new income streams. One more essential action is observing which sectors remain strong. Healthcare, utilities, repair services, essential goods, cybersecurity, and low-cost entertainment often remain resilient even in severe downturns. People who shift their careers, businesses, or investments into these durable sectors can stabilize faster than those stuck in collapsing industries. During a crash, mental resilience becomes as important as financial strategy. Stress compounds. When income drops, bills rise, and the future feels uncertain. People who maintain clarity and discipline, who avoid panic spirals, navigate crises with better outcomes. Mental stability improves decision-making, strengthens motivation, and keeps families grounded at a time when chaos threatens to overwhelm everything. Planning for the long term also matters. Crashes create temporary chaos, but they also create long-term opportunity. Those who survive the first wave by staying liquid, cutting costs, reducing debt, protecting assets, and maintaining awareness emerge with the ability to build wealth during the recovery. Every major economic downturn in history has rewarded the people who preserved capital and positioned themselves early. Finally, the most important thing is understanding that economic crashes don't last forever. They feel like the world is collapsing, but they eventually stabilize. Economies rebuild, new industries rise, new fortunes are made, and new systems emerge. The people who treat the crash as a challenge, not a verdict, become the ones who define the next chapter of growth. When an economy collapses, survival shifts from convenience to strategy. The households that remain stable are the ones that react early, protect their essentials, and restructure their financial behaviors before the worst pressures hit. As businesses begin laying off workers and banks restrict lending, the first priority becomes securing predictable access to the basics: food, water, transportation, communication, and financial liquidity. People who treat the crisis as temporary often get blindsided, while those who adapt immediately gain a critical advantage. As prices rise and incomes shrink, budgeting transforms from a monthly plan into a survival tool. Every dollar must serve a purpose. The first step is eliminating expenses that drain resources without providing direct security or long-term utility. Unnecessary subscriptions, impulse purchases, high-interest debt repayments, and lifestyle upgrades become liabilities during a crash. Many families discover that their largest leaks are invisible: comfort spending, vanity expenses, and high-fee financial services that appeared affordable during stable times. Cutting these costs early gives breathing space before deeper instability develops. A collapsing economy also exposes the fragility of debt. Mortgages, auto loans, credit cards, and personal loans can rapidly turn into traps when income decreases. Individuals who restructure or negotiate these obligations early often avoid catastrophic outcomes later. Banks, under pressure during recessions, quietly prefer partial recovery over total default, which gives borrowers an opportunity to request reduced payments, extensions, or temporary relief. Those who wait too long lose leverage as institutions tighten policies once losses accelerate. At the same time, liquidity becomes one of the most powerful shields. Cash on hand, whether in bank accounts, digital wallets, or secure reserves, allows people to buy essentials, cover emergencies, and take advantage of rare opportunities that appear during contractions. When markets fall and asset values plunge, investors with liquidity often acquire properties, stocks, or equipment at historically low prices. For households, liquidity prevents forced selling, panic borrowing, and dependence on unstable income streams. During an economic crash, employment becomes unpredictable across sectors. Workers in retail, hospitality, entertainment, non-essential services, and highly cyclical industries face immediate risk. As layoffs increase, competition intensifies for any available positions, and companies demand more skills for lower pay. This environment rewards adaptability. People who expand their skill sets early, before unemployment spikes, have a better chance of maintaining income stability. Online certifications, digital skills, trade abilities, and remote work capabilities become survival assets. The crash does not abolish work. It restructures who gets it. Diversifying income streams strengthens personal resilience. A single job becomes a weak foundation during financial turmoil. Small-scale side work, freelancing, delivery services, repair jobs, online consulting, tutoring, content creation, basic digital services helps distribute risk. Even modest additional income can bridge critical gaps during severe downturns. The goal is not maximizing earnings, but protecting against total income collapse. Food security becomes another central concern as supply chains weaken and prices fluctuate. People who purchase strategically, non-perishable goods, bulk staples, energy-efficient cooking supplies, gain insulation from sudden shortages or price shocks. Planning meals, reducing waste, and rotating supplies ensures resources last longer. The purpose is not hoarding, but stabilizing access to daily necessities at a time when markets lose reliability. Transportation. Stability becomes essential as fuel prices rise, maintenance costs increase, and job markets shift. Reliable mobility enables access to work opportunities, essential stores, medical care, and emergency options. People often underestimate this until they are forced to walk long distances or depend on unreliable public systems. Maintaining vehicles efficiently, reducing unnecessary travel, and preparing alternative transportation options protect against sudden disruptions. As economic stress spreads, crime often increases. Job losses, desperation, and weakened institutions contribute to higher theft, fraud, and exploitation. Personal safety and asset protection become critical components of recession resilience. Strengthening home security, minimizing public display of wealth, using safe payment methods, and avoiding high-risk environments reduce vulnerability during unstable periods. Communities play a vital role in surviving downturns. Families, neighbors, and local groups exchange resources, share information, and support each other during shortages. Crisis networks provide access to opportunities, advice, emergency aid, and moral support. Isolation weakens resilience, while strong social connections provide alternatives when institutions fail. During prolonged downturns, governments begin enforcing policies, rationing subsidies, stimulus payouts, tax changes, emergency rules that reshape daily life. Individuals who monitor these changes early often benefit the most. Whether it's relief programs, unemployment benefits, small business support, or debt restructuring initiatives, opportunities tend to favor those who act quickly. When resources are limited, delays mean missing out. Inflation, deflation, currency instability, and asset volatility all require ongoing awareness. In a crash, conditions change rapidly. People who stay informed through credible financial sources, economic data, and policy announcements respond more effectively than those who rely on rumors or panic-driven behavior. Crisis intelligence becomes a personal asset. As Part 2 ends, the financial landscape remains chaotic. Jobs continue disappearing, prices fluctuate daily, and governments struggle to contain the collapse. Households that adapt early gain control, while others face growing instability. The environment rewards discipline, strategy, and rapid adjustment as the world moves deeper into economic turmoil. As the economic crash deepens, daily life begins to shift in ways people never expected. Prices fluctuate violently, jobs become uncertain, and institutions that once felt permanent suddenly appear fragile. In this phase, survival moves from theory to reality, and every decision, financial, emotional, and strategic, carries weight. People adapt because they must, discovering that stability is no longer guaranteed by governments or markets, but by their own planning, discipline, and clarity. The most successful responses come from those who confront the crisis directly, rather than waiting for someone else to solve it. The first wave of collapse usually triggers panic, but the second wave demands adjustment. Households begin cutting expenses not out of preference, but out of necessity. The concept of essential becomes redefined. Entertainment, unnecessary purchases, frequent eating out, and impulse spending disappear from the routine, replaced by budgeting that is deliberate and strict. Families start tracking every currency unit that comes in and out, learning how much they truly spend and where the waste has been hiding. For many, this is the first time they truly understand their own financial habits. With income shrinking and prices rising, awareness becomes the first weapon against economic deterioration. Income diversification becomes a survival requirement rather than a strategy for growth. Traditional jobs become unstable. Companies freeze salaries or cut positions, and entire sectors contract. Individuals begin searching for alternate streams of revenue: gig work, remote opportunities, freelance services, online business, tutoring, consulting, repairing, and reselling. People skilled in multiple trades suddenly find themselves at an advantage. The crisis reveals that the economy has always rewarded adaptability, but only now does society recognize it. Flexibility becomes a currency more powerful than savings alone. Communities play a larger role as people recognize the limits of individual resilience. Neighborhood-level cooperation increases. Shared transportation, pooled groceries, group buying, barter exchanges, and skill trades replace isolated consumption. People who never spoke to their neighbors now rely on them for support networks, childcare, shared tools, or local information. Social bonds become a hidden economic stabilizer, reducing personal expenses and strengthening emotional stability. Isolation becomes expensive, cooperation becomes efficient. As uncertainty expands, those who thrive are not the ones who predict the future, but the ones who prepare for multiple outcomes. Individuals adopt contingency plans, what to do if income falls another 20%, if rent increases, if loans become unmanageable, or if access to essential goods becomes inconsistent. The crisis teaches that hope is not a strategy, action is. People stop assuming that conditions will return to normal quickly. Instead, they brace for prolonged instability while positioning themselves to capitalize once the rebound begins. Debt becomes one of the most dangerous liabilities in a crash. High-interest loans become unbearable as income shrinks. The inability to service debt creates a domino effect. Defaults increase, credit scores drop, and financial institutions tighten borrowing conditions. Those who reorganize their debts early, negotiating lower rates, extending terms, consolidating loans, or eliminating unnecessary liabilities, gain a decisive advantage. The crisis punishes over-leveraged households, but rewards those with discipline and negotiation skills. As the crash exposes structural weaknesses, people recognize that financial literacy is not optional. It is a survival skill. During economic downturns, essential industries reveal themselves clearly. Food, healthcare, repair work, transportation, logistics, utilities, and basic manufacturing become critical economic anchors. People with skills in these sectors experience greater stability. Training programs and online courses surge as workers attempt to shift careers into more resilient fields. The crisis becomes an enormous reskilling event, forcing workers to adapt their expertise to the demands of a new economic landscape. Those who resist the shift often fall behind. Those who embrace it outperform others. Investors also undergo a transformation. In the early phase of the crash, panic selling dominates the market as people fear deeper losses. But as the crisis matures, disciplined investors begin studying long-term opportunities. They differentiate between temporary destruction and permanent decline. They identify businesses that will survive, adapt, and lead the recovery. While many people withdraw from investing entirely, others adopt dollar-cost averaging, investing small amounts regularly regardless of market volatility. They understand that wealth is often built in downturns when assets are undervalued and fear controls the market. Real estate markets behave unpredictably during severe crashes. Some regions experience price drops due to job losses and migration patterns, while others remain stable because of limited supply or local resilience. Renters experience uncertainty as landlords increase rates to survive inflation or attempt to compensate for their own rising expenses. Many households choose shared living arrangements to reduce housing burdens, and multifamily occupancy becomes more common. People learn that housing security is not solely about ownership, but about flexibility, location strategy, and timing. Access to essential goods becomes inconsistent when supply chains break down. People begin stocking essentials strategically, not in panic, but in careful preparation. Items like rice, flour, canned foods, toiletries, medicine, batteries, and basic tools become part of household reserves. They learn to buy durable goods instead of disposable ones, to cook efficiently to avoid waste and to stretch resources. The crash shifts consumer psychology away from convenience and toward resilience, teaching skills that previous generations practiced regularly but modern society forgot. Health becomes a crucial economic factor. Medical crises during an economic collapse can be financially devastating. People begin prioritizing exercise, preventive care, home remedies, and stress management because they cannot afford prolonged illness. Sleep, diet, and emotional stability become economic tools as much as personal ones. Those who maintain strong physical and mental health navigate the downturn with greater clarity and fewer setbacks. Risk perception also evolves. Before the crash, people assume stability. After the crash, they question every decision. They evaluate employer stability, household expenditures, investment positions, and long-term plans with heightened caution. But the most strategic individuals avoid getting paralyzed by fear. They take measured risks, build emergency funds, and prepare for unpredictability. They understand that risk cannot be eliminated, only managed. Governments play a complicated role during deep economic crises. Some introduce support programs, subsidies, and stimulus packages. Others struggle due to budget deficits, political gridlock, or declining revenue. Citizens learn quickly that government action can help but cannot solve everything. The crash reveals the importance of personal responsibility and long-term planning. People realize that the safety net has limits, and depending solely on external support can be dangerous. Technology becomes both a lifeline and a necessity. Online work, digital banking, remote education, and e-commerce enable economic survival in ways previous generations could not imagine. Those who embrace digital tools gain new earning opportunities, while those who avoid them face barriers. The crash accelerates technological adoption across every age group and income level. As the collapse continues, many people discover hidden strengths. They become more resourceful, more disciplined, and more self-aware. They reduce unnecessary consumption, redefine success, and value experiences over possessions. Relationships become deeper because they are no longer built around material comfort, but around shared struggle and support. On a broader scale, the crash forces society to re-examine its priorities. Overconsumption gives way to sustainability. Short-term thinking gives way to long-term planning. And fragile systems give way to more resilient models. The economy becomes more decentralized as small businesses, local producers, and independent workers gain importance. Creativity becomes economic value. Innovation becomes survival. For individuals, the path through the crash is shaped by mindset as much as by action. Fear-driven decisions lead to scarcity, emotional burnout, and financial mistakes. But decisions grounded in strategy, cutting expenses, increasing skills, diversifying income, building savings, reducing debt, studying markets, and connecting with community, lead to stability even when the broader economy struggles. The crisis teaches a universal truth. Wealth is not only money. Wealth is resilience, adaptability, health, knowledge, relationships, confidence, and the ability to navigate uncertainty without losing clarity. Those who understand this emerge from the crash stronger than they entered it. As the economic collapse intensifies, people face the most transformative phase of their lives. They must balance caution with courage, stability with flexibility, and survival with long-term planning. Each day becomes an opportunity to strengthen their position, protect their assets, and build the foundation for eventual recovery. And while the crisis is severe, it is also revealing, showing who adapts, who resists, and who ultimately rises.